Coming up on this episode of the Women's Leadership Mindset Series podcast.
I ran into someone who had actually created software to do audio to text, like take a podcast interview, turn that into a chapter in a book, that kind of thing. And we ended up, she said, do you want to write a book? Like, okay, I'm not really sure where this is going, but sure, why not? And from idea to putting it on Amazon, we were able to do in 10 days. And it wasn't 10 days that we dropped everything in our lives, right? It was 10 days that we incorporated this in on everything else that we were doing. And we didn't really do that so people would be impressed, but the book was how to write a book in 30 days. So if we could do it in 10, right? Getting in your head a little bit, 30 days is plenty of time. But I think really the goal was, and still is for me, is to open possibilities, particularly for women, about getting our voices heard and that credibility and authority. And there's something super transformational about writing a book that I'm really addicted to. Maybe not so much for myself, though not gonna lie, I like that as well, but really for other women, seeing them light up when they're like, wow, like this is something that's gonna live beyond me. And I actually said those words, like I actually sound pretty freaking amazing because they are freaking amazing.
Welcome, leaders, to the Women's Leadership Mindset Series presented by TK Page Enterprises. My name is Teresa Page, and I am your host and looking forward to spending these next few moments with all of you. We have a lot of work to get done on today, but first, allow me to invite you to connect with me by subscribing to my website and to connect and follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other social media platforms. And always feel free to contact me directly via email or by booking an appointment. So what is our goal? Well, as an author, speaker, coach, and mentor, my mission is to help professional women renew their leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose through diverse mediums of leadership empowerment solutions and the My Journey to Wholeness book series. However, the Women's Leadership Mindset series is a new initiative intended to spotlight powerful women leaders and how they serve the world through their professions and purpose. So with a goal to help women realize their unfulfilled dreams and re-energize the leaders they always were, this platform is designed to enhance, empower, educate, equalize, and even emancipate as our featured guests share their entrepreneurial stories, provide viable resources, and guidance in a caring, professional, and impactful manner. So, let's get down to business. Well, all right, in today's video, it is my pleasure to welcome to my virtual stage Leslie Capps, CEO and founder of Author in 30 of Laramie, Wyoming. Leslie is a best-selling author who helps people turn what they already know into a book and business asset that brings in clients. Through her podcast, Powerful on Purpose, and her work with authors and entrepreneurs, she shows how to transform ideas, stories, and expertise into content that works without months of struggling or overcomplicated systems. So to contact Leslie, you may reach her on her website at authorin30.com. You may also connect with her via email at lescaps1@gmail.com. You can also connect with her on social media via LinkedIn at Leslie Capps and on Facebook at leslie.capps.9. So we'll bring back all of this information along with Leslie's complimentary gift before we go. But first, I want to say, welcome, Leslie. How are you?
Well, thank you, Teresa. So delighted to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your audience. And you nailed Laramie.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, Leslie, I'm so excited about our conversation. First, I want to, before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to our awesome connection that actually brought us together, and that's Corey Lang, owner of Corey Lang Detoxify to Heal. So who was also one of my former guests and one of my entrepreneurial, I would say, colleagues via online. So shout out to Corey for making this connection. Well, Leslie, I'm so excited about our conversation and our one-on-one. I'm really impressed about the work that you do, and excited for our listening audience to hear the magic that you help individuals do of turning their books in such a small amount of time. So we're really excited. So we're going to go ahead and get down to business. Why don't you start and tell us a little bit about yourself beyond the bio?
Sure. Well, I think it's always interesting our journeys of how we get to what we're doing, right? So I'll share a little bit of that journey because years ago I wrote a book. I'll do air quotes the old-fashioned way, pen to paper and typing, and it was such a frustrating, aggravating experience. The ideas I had in my brain and the way I wanted things to be described just did not come out right on paper. So I honestly never really thought much after that about pursuing books more, even though as a kid and growing up, I'd always thought, ooh, I would love to write books, right? Then fast forward to maybe a year and a half ago, I got opportunity to pitch a book idea to take to an event. So a very short timeline. So obviously I thought, okay, I got to think this out because I know that I cannot do it typing, but I've also been working with AI. There's got to be a solution to this. And I sort of duct taped something together where I really spoke the text out, structured it all out, and then did audio to text. Holy moly, it was a beautiful experience, right? I was like, oh, I think this is what writing is supposed to be about, this journey of becoming an author that I never experienced because it was so aggravating on the other end. And then after that, maybe 8 months, I ran into someone who had actually created software to do audio to text, like take a podcast interview, turn that into a chapter in a book, that kind of thing. And we ended up, she said, do you want to write a book? Like, okay, I'm not really sure where this is going, but sure, why not? And from idea to putting it on Amazon, we were able to do in 10 days. And it wasn't 10 days that we dropped everything in our lives, right? It was 10 days that we incorporated this in on everything else that we were doing. And we didn't really do that so people would be impressed, but the book was how to write a book in 30 days. So if we could do it in 10, right? Getting in your head a little bit, 30 days is plenty of time. But I think really the goal was, and still is for me, is to open possibilities, particularly for women, about getting our voices heard and that credibility and authority. And there's something super transformational about writing a book that I'm really addicted to. Maybe not so much for myself, though not gonna lie, I like that as well, but really for other women, seeing them light up when they're like, wow, this is something that's gonna live beyond me. And I actually said those words, like I actually sound pretty freaking amazing because they are freaking amazing. So that's kind of the journey of how I got to doing what I'm doing now.
I absolutely love that, and the way that you were able to create a way to help women to elevate their voices as well as their authority in a small amount of time. I think that technology has opened up doors for us that allows us to move faster and even I don't won't say pre-AI, but I think I recently found uh, one of the one of the tools on Microsoft Word that's called Transcribe. that I didn't know that was there. For whatever reason, it's not so visible on Microsoft Word, but it has allowed me to take a lot of my audio stuff, throw it in to upload it, and poof pow, in a few minutes, all of the text is on the page. And so that has helped me to move faster. And then you add AI to that mechanism, and you're able to create so many things as far as content that you can utilize either as a book or social media and things like that. So I like the way that you have created and the fact that you were also in your small time crunch as well, that kind of forced you into this new opportunity. So I think that's pretty cool. Um, can you take us then into Author in 30? Take us into your world so we understand what it is that you do from a high level, but take us down into the nitty and the gritty. What does it look like as you're helping women to elevate their work, their voices, as well as their authority in the world? What does that look like practically within your space? So take us in, break it down for us, who you like to work with, and what are some of the outcomes?
Sure, absolutely. So I think the 50,000 foot view, right, is simplifying that process because I work with authors at multiple stages, right? Maybe I have an idea kind of stage, I've got some content, but I'm not sure where to go with that. To, okay, I have some content written, but now it's kind of gotten away from me. I'm not really sure what the goal is, or like, how do I wrap my hands around all this content? Because that tends to be more the problem, right? That we have way more than we know what to do with, than we just have no content. Clear through to, okay, I need some help publishing now. So wherever people fall within that trajectory, at the smaller, if we were to take one step smaller to that, is really, I think it can be broken into a couple things. Strategy. How do we outline a strategy on the front end? What is our goal for that book? Who are we speaking to? What do we want them to experience by the time they've read the book? And that middle portion might be, how are we creating that content now? Do we already have content that we're using, or are we doing all audio to text? Are we going to write it out? Um, and that is not as important, honestly, as probably the things on the other sides. But it's still one of those pieces that everybody's going to need to make that decision about, and then kind of stick with it, right? Find what works for you, and then we create a process and a system so it streamlines it and simplifies it. And then the next would be, okay, now how do we get that book into the world? What are our publishing options? What is the cost? How does that work? What are the things we need to have in hand? And then marketing. Um, and marketing really kind of hangs us up. I come from a marketing background. So for me, everything is marketing, right? That's part of why I love books so much, I think, is an amazing marketing tool. You can, if you write one book, you can have years of content, never have to repeat the same thing, right? It's just a beautiful system. But how do we actually implement that? That seems to be the hang up. Like, I don't want to have to talk about it all the time. Okay, there's multiple ways you can talk about it and utilize it. So it really can speed up and streamline your own processing. Some of the results are people, I think a lot of it is personal transformation. Um, Definitely you're going to get more people. It's a pool expander, if you will, right? We have a certain pool of people, and now if you write a book, that pool becomes bigger. Now it gets bigger the more you talk about it, absolutely. And if you don't talk about it, it's probably not going to widen your pool as much as if you do. So some of it's still kind of doing some of the back end work, right? Which we're all like, oh, we thought we would just write the book and then it would magically people would come to us. I would love that if it happened, but that's probably not the reality. But the transformation. So I do see people reaching out. They read your book. They're like, oh, I'm going to connect with that person. or I want what she does, or I'm going to enter her free community. I'm going to join her somehow in whatever she's building. That definitely happens. But really, I think the biggest part, the part that excites me, is women being empowered, uh, hearing their own words in such a way that they go, wow, I am more powerful now. And my voice is bigger. I'm stepping into a bigger role. At the end of the day, when we empower women, they turn around and empower others. And so, like my side secret, I would love to change the world by empowering more women, right? Because um, I think you and I talked about this. If women had been driving the bus, I don't think we'd be in the position we are currently in the world. So I think we definitely need more women's voices stepping up in leadership roles. But just that verification, I think, and transformation as we see that legacy of our words on our paper, and we hear, I like to call it our greatness reflected back to us in our own words. It's right, this beautiful circular thing. So I don't know if that totally answered all your questions, but that's kind of the journey as I see it.
And I love that journey, especially wanting to change the world by empowering as many women as you possibly can through that transformation. I will have to say, Leslie, just in my own experience, especially publishing my last book on my own, one of the things that really, really, truly touched me was actually hearing when I proofread or I'm editing. I use the read aloud function on Word. So I'm reading, but I'm hearing at the same time. So as I get older, I'm finding I need to read and hear. But having the system to read it, and now the voices are more human-like, and actually having a voice to read back my own words actually touched me. I mean, I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, did I write that? And it actually touched me in a way that, well, if it's touching me and I actually wrote this, then it can only, I can only imagine how it would touch others, or would hope that it would touch others. Because it then put me on the side of being the listener or the reader, versus from the author. Do you think, is that part of your strategy as well, as you are empowering and working with your clients, that you encourage them to also listen to their words, regardless if they're in the editing process or anything like that, to, I don't know, to help their shoulders stand up straighter a little bit more? Does that help also with your clients?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, any way we get our voice reflected back to us, right, in a different way. Uh, and this is part of why I honestly love audio to text too. So I say, here's the thing. Apparently, like I don't hear myself ever say, here's the thing. But when I mention this to people who know me, they're like, yeah, you do say, here's the thing. But what happened was, right, audio to text, that showed up in my writing. The other thing, along with having someone read it back to you, is beta readers. Like anybody, any book, anytime, always have beta readers. Like they are so invaluable. Like I love beta readers, right? And they can be anybody that can be objective about your reading, because you will again get that reflection back to you, as well as find out where our brains made a connection that the reader can't make. So hugely invaluable. But here's the thing, right? It showed up in my audio because I was speaking it. So now that I know that, I totally leaned into it in that book, because here's the thing is my thing. And it sounds like me talking to people, which is what a book for me is having that conversation with people. So I think you're absolutely right. As we're editing, we always want to say it out loud or have it read back to us, or both, ideally, right? And get that perspective of how it feels in that form.
Absolutely. And I absolutely love that. And thank you so much for giving us a inside look of what it what it looks to work along with you. Just based on some of your experiences with the clients that you have worked with, what is the quickest that you've been able to get a book from idea to the market? Have you set any records for yourself?
Well, I would say the 10 days was like pretty mind blowing, right? Because we didn't intentionally, but also on the other hand, and we were super focused, right? We knew it was a timeline. We didn't say, okay, we're going to do this in X amount of time, but we were very conscious that um, we kept the process rolling along. So that one might be hard to beat. Now, somebody else told me that they hand wrote one and did it like in 3 days or something. So clearly there's some timelines, but I would say here's the other thing, like our brains, when we say you're going to write a book in 2 weeks, right? 14 days, our brains are like, oh, no, we can't do that because we've got other things to do. Oh, no, right? Like that pushes all our buttons. So, I would even say 30 days will sometimes mess with people. But I think 30 days, especially you're an expert, maybe you already have content, 30 days is entirely possible. So not quite the same answer as, but yeah, I mean, and if somebody wants to try it out, I'm game. I think we could do a book in 7 days, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier that AI has been a help in this particular process. Um, but I'm also hearing in I guess, out here in certain spaces that a lot of people are just they're not even writing. They're just creating something via AI and then throwing it out there. So it's not even something that has really come from their own heart or their own soul or from their own space of creativity. So for those of us who want to authentically share a message or a thought and to leave that in the world, but then still utilize AI as a tool to help us to move faster, how can we do that and um, kind of map out for us what does that look like to be able to utilize AI as your friend, but you're still utilizing your own creativity, you're still putting your own elbow grease into it. When people listen to it, they're hearing your voice versus somebody else's. In what ways do you use AI in this space, but still where the information is still authentic?
Sure. I think that's a good question because you're right. There's a lot of yah out there in the marketplace of AI sounds a certain way, and I'm not going to disagree. Right now, the term that my AI is really hooked on is honestly, and honestly, that gets very annoying, which I tell her all the time. But and it's interesting, right? AI is very, very patterned, and so I think we have to keep that in mind as well. The other day, she started saying phrasing, but she dropped the R. So it was like kind of phasing. She dropped the R and the A because it was a word. I was like, what is that word? And she then repeated it. And finally I was like, okay, is this a new word? And I think we were talking about book marketing or something. She's like, oh no, that's me. I dropped the R and the A and now it's a pattern. Ooh, okay, people. So this is the thing to watch for about AI, right? And using AI and thinking that it always knows our voice because it really doesn't. Um, it knows our voice to a certain extent, but it really is on us to keep it reined in and make sure it does sound like our voice. So when I use AI, certainly I'm using audio to text, I'm getting a transcript, and I'm having it clean things up. Again, that is always being super conscious of because it will try and rewrite your voice. I guarantee you. Been working with it now for quite a long time. It will try and it'll smooth things over. It'll make bridges where it doesn't make the bridges. It won't connect dots that you think it should. So it's really a tool. I like to say it like this. It can help you get the foundation, but really the editing, the ideas, everything that is coming from you. And absolutely, when I wrote the first book in 30 days, I looked into a program, even paid for that program, and I've got two books, two manuscripts sitting there completely created by AI. And they actually don't sound too bad. Do they sound like me? No. And at the end of the day, that's really what I'm about. Um, yeah, and there's some funky stuff going on with AI writing books, right? I read one recently, it was about day trading. So he's talking about traders, Traders, ERS. And at the end of the book, it became traders, Traitors. Very, very different meaning, right? I was like, what happened here? And then as I said it out loud, I was like, oh, I get it, right? It's traders versus traders, and they very much do sound the same. Um, so yeah, I think it really, and at the end of the day, if that's how you want to create books, whatever, right? Whatever. I think for me, it really is creating that connection with readers and sounding like me. So then when you meet me, you're like, oh, I hear some of those same words that I read in the book. She's exactly that person, right? Um, so yeah, but it is. It's always a very challenging and delicate balance with AI because it can do beautiful things and it can just be a train wreck, no doubt.
Absolutely. And thank you for giving us some insight there. Because I think what I'm starting to see, I know it's one of the platforms where my book is, there's been some communications that's been coming in like back to back to back, where in certain things are going to be removed off of their platforms if it's something, um, these public domain type books where someone did create somewhat of an AI generated book that they didn't create on their own, that those kind of books are going to be removed off of their platforms. But I'm also starting to see that with these self-publishing platforms, that they're also putting authors in a position where they have to increase the cost of their books, that is maybe a little higher than you would be able to get a traditional softcover book or things like that. What are your thoughts on that? Could it just be a matter of this is a thing about inflation, or is it something because more people are starting to take this self-publishing route and these platforms need to figure out other ways to make money? What do you think that maybe is? Because it is driving the cost of books up just a little bit.
Sure.
What are your thoughts?
Hmm. I would say it's probably a combination of things, honestly. I would guess that there is some aspect of inflation. Also, some of those sites, and I don't know specifically which ones you're referencing, but some of them also are working hard to get authors more money, right? Um, so that could also drive up the costs in that aspect. At the end of the day, especially nonfiction books, I think it's really hard if your goal is to make $1 million with your nonfiction book, then we need to have a conversation because that's probably not the easy way to go. I think it's entirely possible. That probably includes New York Times bestseller and some things like that either lots of time and effort or lots of money and or both. I think the goal of a nonfiction book should be to grow your business, to give you marketing materials, to increase your authority, increase your credibility, and directly tie into your business. It's not something I do and I mention. It now becomes an integral leg in your business, if you will. So, um, like, yeah, I flat out tell anybody I work with, not going to make $1 million on a book. Probably even if you even break even, you're doing good, right? The idea anymore of publishers taking on books and paying us a big royalty, those ships have pretty much sailed unless you already have an audience. So I think it's just a different looking at it differently than kind of what we were accustomed to in that sort of traditional model of what an author looked like.
Absolutely, because I think the way that I, because my books are on three different self-publishing platforms, whether it's KDP, Barnes& and Noble, Ingram Sparks. So the way that I look at those platforms from my perspective, because I am nonfiction. So, the way that I look at them is that you're basically the company I go to print my books. So when I'm going to an event or if I'm going somewhere or I need them on hand, but I'm also learning how to, as you mentioned, how to grow my business or how to increase my authority by actually packaging it with my leadership retreat. So my last book is built around a five-part leadership retreat that I created. So now it's like a bundle. It's the five-part presentation. You get the book, you get a workbook. So it's a bundle for me, and I'm assuming that other authors are starting to take this approach. How and what other ways do you think that authors or even self-published authors can, especially non-fiction authors, in what other ways can they bundle their books to grow their business as well as to increase their authorities? What are some of those other ways that you see that are beneficial?
Sure. Yeah, and that's a great way that you're talking about using it. But absolutely bundling books together, right? The meeting before, we were talking about doing a workbook and a book and bundling those together. But also speaking, okay? So I want to speak to certain types of group. I offer them, if you pay me X amount to speak and I include X number of books, or you purchase X number of books, I include now speaking on top of that. Certainly when you go to speak somewhere, as you mentioned, taking author copies with you, selling them there. You could even give giveaways. Uh, yeah, there's all sorts of ideas of how we can use books creatively. When somebody joins your program, send them a book. Send somebody a book when they're on your podcast. Send somebody a book, because a book is a cool thing. Nobody's throwing away a book, right? It's like the Bugatti of business cards, if you will. And so the more ways you can think of how to get that running, like a challenge, right? Everyone who goes through my challenge to day 7 gets my book. You can even then send people ebooks. Again, super easy. Now we're eliminating shipping, packaging, all that, but it's still something they get, and they get to take that one step into your world. So for all marketing, I always look at it as, what's the next step people can take to get into your world? And a book should have multiple ways, right? If you're at this stage, what would be the next step for people? Oh, okay. Well, I give them a checklist, or I give them a workbook or something else that then they give me their email for. So, yeah, I love your idea. And I think we need to be thinking about that, right, in bigger ways. How do we leverage the content we already have and use it in multiple different ways?
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing with us some of those additional ideas for us. And we're living in a weird time, Leslie, and then we're going to start downshifting in our conversation, but we're living in a weird time where technology is probably taking us further. Do you think that we would ever get to a place in our society where books would become obsolete? I mean, surely just in different parts of our country where we're actually banning books now, we're burning books now. Like, what are we doing? I mean, it's 2026, but we're in this world now that certain content offends someone that, in our political spectrums, they could be banned or even burned or taken out of libraries, taken out of schools and different things like that, as if you can control what people consume on their own personal time. But my question is, based upon the way that we're moving forward as a 21st century forward moving society, Do you think books will ever become obsolete?
Hmm. I don't think so. Somebody else posed this similar question the other day, and I said, we've always, well, it's like everything, right? Ups and downs. But we've burned books before, we've banned books before, and books have lived through. And when you think about something that is ubiquitous, and I'm looking around my own house, right, of books being places, I, I still think at the end of the day, and maybe the way we consume books will morph somewhat, but it really is the one thing that I don't think's going away ever is this sharing of our words in some sort of written, right? Whether that's digital or not, written form. So for me, it's probably one of the one constants I see in all of marketing and media is having that book with your name associated.
Absolutely. I definitely see that as myself because I don't foresee that I will have children on this side of glory. So, so therefore, what do I send into the future beyond me for the next 1,000 years that actually has my name on it? And I think I have discovered that being able to produce more books, something that has my name on it, whether in the future they're reading it by hologram, I'm not sure, but um, but at least it was something left in the earth with my name on it so that 1,000 years from now, someone would know that Teresa Page was here. So I think not only is it important to share my thoughts with this generation, but that it will also be a benefit to 100 generations down the road. And I think that's so important. And I think it also leans in again about empowering women, elevating their voices, and making sure that their authority is felt, whether in this generation or the next or the next or the next. So, Leslie, I'm really enjoying our conversation. I'm enjoying the context and the expertise that you're sharing with us on today about books and definitely how to be able to get it into the market so much faster. So I'm really enjoying our conversation. But as we prepare to downshift, one of the things that I think in some ways, we do align as far as wanting to be able to empower women. As you know, that love is the way that I do that. Being able to employ love as that ultimate success factor to renew women's leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose. So, along with that mission, I wholeheartedly believe that the effective power of love is a game changer for us. Whether we're an author, we're trying to boost our business, we're trying to elevate our authority, that love is that game changer, to help us to be innovative in our business and maybe our books, or to help us to be fully present for our teams or our readers, or to be knowledgeable about industry trends, being able to adjust to however we need to put books out into the market, and being benevolent in our community service, but most of all, being powerful in leadership, being powerful in our authority. So, understanding all of that, and this is one of my favorite questions that I love to ask all of my guests. Understanding all of these things that I believe about love, what would you say the kind of leader that you are, and how has love tangibly shaped you as this particular leader?
Hmm, the kind of leader I am. Um, I think I could sum it up like this, right? Because I think, yeah, like I've got all sorts of ideas in my head, but I'm never gonna let a woman walk out of the room with her skirt stuck in her pantyhose. I would say that's the kind of leader I am, right? Um, the hard truths or the truths, like I want you to, man or woman, but obviously I'm women centric. I want you to be the best when you walk out into that world. So if something needs to be changed on a book or content or messaging or whatever it is, I am going to bring that up because at the end of the day, I want to love you as much as I want you to love you, and leading you, or maybe setting the example for how that looks, right? Not in a shame or anything else, but hey, this isn't aligned. Let's fix it so it is aligned, kind of deal. So that would be my short answer, right? I could probably go on, but yeah.
Love that. A hard truth leader that's wanting you to be the best when you step out into the world. Absolutely. Love it, love it, love it. So, what do you want your future generations, how do you want future generations to benefit from the work that you're doing today?
Mm, possibility. I think for me, that's really at the end of the day what it comes down to is we've always had an idea about so many things, right? But certainly being an author, writing a book, but possibility. If you have an idea, if you say, I want to do X, there is a way to do it. Um, for me, it happened to be around taking this idea of books, right? And how we can do it faster so it sounds like more like us, and really utilize it as a tool in our business above and beyond the book part of it. So I think for me, it definitely comes down to possibility and opening people's eyes to, oh, hey, like I've always had this idea, but I thought it would take me 6 years and $60,000 and whatever it is. Nope. Like we can shortcut all of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this kind of segues into my next question as we prepare to downshift, because you've been educating us the entire time we've been in this space to get today. And I want to say thank you so much. But, for those who are listening in the audience, they have that desire that they want to write a book. They have an idea. It's not leaving them alone, but they just haven't taken the time. And like you just said, they might think it costs thousands of dollars or it's going to take a huge amount of time. Um, what tip, what encouragement or resource would you give to someone in our listening audience to take that step to turn this dream book or dream series or dream manuscript into a reality? What would you give to them?
Mm. Well, there's probably so many tips, right? But honestly, I hope I'm not jumping ahead too much, but really I offer a free hour author lab every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Is drop in. You never know who's going to be there, what the questions will be. Today, what did we talk about? We talked about ISBNs, and somebody was actually, she said, I've had this book idea, right? And here's what I'm thinking, and how could I structure it, and that kind of thing. So really, that would be a great place, and anybody's welcome to drop in and get ideas. I think above and beyond that, really starting to get clear on what your goal is for your book. I think that's something we don't think about enough, and it can be anything, right? It could be, I just want to educate people about this. I just want to tell my story, whatever it is. But that will really help you when you start to structure that book, is understanding what you want to get out of it. And that's above and beyond, oh, I need it to be a lead magnet for a business, or I need it to make money, right? What is the goal? I want people to feel differently. Okay, what does differently look like? And how is that person going to feel at the end versus the way they started? So for me, that would always be the number one ground starting question, is what do you want that book to do for other people?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're not too far ahead of the goal, because we are going to get into the author lab we're going to talk about in just a moment. And some of what you just shared might also be a benefit to those that I'm going to pose in this next question, because I want you to also talk to those who have already considered, they're clear on their book, they've already written their book, they're clear on it, they know exactly what they want it to do, but they've reached a bump in the road, or that a stall, maybe in sales or a stall, and they're feeling a bit frustrated or stuck, what would you give to those who are already living the dream? They've already done the work. They've already put something into the public domain, but they're feeling a little stuck. What tip, what encouragement or resource would you give to them?
I would also say stop into the author lab. Last week we talked about marketing, right? Everyone was at that point. And I think every author I've ever talked to gets to that point. Right? We get a little tired of talking about, we think nobody's listening, whatever it is. So I think there's something too about a space where people who want to be authors and current authors can come together and really talk about ideas about marketing, all sorts of things. So marketing in general was probably, it's crazy, but in my head, I'm saying go back to that original, what was your goal? What was your goal for people? And remembering that and sort of refreshing that whole marketing idea, right? Because a book, oh my gosh, you can do quotes, you can like even exchange, like Teresa has a book, I have a book. We could interview each other, share it with our audiences. There's all sorts of ways that books really, you can take a lesson from. You can say, I remember when I wrote this. When I wrote the book in 30 days, what I did was I did a video every day of writing a book in 30 days, which is really intriguing for other people, right? Because every single day I got on there, didn't matter if I had nothing to say or if the world blew up or whatever it was, but I took people on that journey. And it's the same with a book. You're taking them on a journey. So now sharing pieces of the journey with them. So yeah, I think I would weirdly, unless you'd asked that brilliant question, I wouldn't have come back to that. But I would say go back to that original why, what was the goal for other people of reading this book? And how do I now keep recirculating that goal so they know it's them that should step in and buy the book?
Absolutely. And I know that we're coming to a close, but I got to circle back and ask you this question, especially for individuals that, when you talk about continuously talking about your book in order to grow your business, in order to increase your authority. And some people may feel like, oh, well, do I have to talk about it every day? These kind of things. But when we as authors are sharing content, whether it's on social media, wherever we're sharing this content, do we always have to allude back to the book? Or can you just share maybe snippets of the book without actually mentioning the title, so you're not so that you are not appearing to just be salesy? What is your thoughts about that? Even if we're to continue to create content, pull out content from this book, this long form book, how do we do that without, I guess, tiring our audience, so to speak?
Right. And I think that's always a good question. But here, and I'm challenging because I need to be challenged on this myself, right? And I challenge, I think it was the author lab last week. We get tired way more than the marketplace gets tired. I will guarantee you that for sure, right? We're like, oh my gosh, this sounds old. And everybody else, they don't see our stuff all the time. They don't see it every day. Now, unless you're posting an email every single day to the same group of people, they're not going to see your content all the time. And it really is on us to educate people so they understand what we're helping them with, so they realize it's a resource, right? And especially for women, we get all weirded out by we don't want to be salesy, because we have those people that we've seen, we're like, don't want to be like that. But it also creates this thing, oh, if I sound a little salesy, then I must be that, right? And I think separating out, no, what I have is valuable, what I provide is valuable. People want this. I have to let them know that I have it. A different mindset. And like I say, I'm not calling anybody out without calling out myself, because I'm guilty of that as well. But as women, we tend to pull back when nobody else out there is going, oh my gosh, she needs to quit talking about that thing, right? Now if you do it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, that might be a little too much. But I think always, when we're talking about our book, there's nothing wrong with referencing the title or anything like that. So I really encourage us to get a little better about stepping into some of that.
Thank you so much. I like the way that you framed that we might get tired way before the marketplace gets tired, and that everybody doesn't see our content all the time. So I love that, and that helps me as well. So I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna do better. So, well, Leslie, as we start to wind down, you have two complimentary gifts. One you've already started talking about, but I want to make sure that we get it all in on today. You're offering our listening audience today 3 complimentary book clarity sessions, in addition to inviting us into the Author in 30 Lab that you are hosting every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the lab, which you've already mentioned earlier, and also tell us about the book clarity sessions that you're offering our audience today.
Sure. So the lab is really, like I said, a drop-in space. Any questions are welcome at any stage of writing. I'm sure there's questions I have not had yet, but we have addressed all sorts of, and sometimes depending on who is there, the conversation takes on a life of its own. So, but it's a great place to connect with. I think it's great to connect with other people who are excited about writing or have ideas. One gal came, she's like, I don't know, I kind of have this idea. Everybody in the group said, oh my gosh, we love it. That's amazing. She started writing that book, right? So sometimes it's just that little spark that you need to really light that fire. Like, okay, it seemed weird in my head when I said it out loud and people responded. Now I'm good to go. And the book clarity sessions, yeah, if you have a book idea, really, it's kind of like this whole conversation, right? I am who I am, whether I'm talking, writing, or interacting with people. But asking you some of those questions, what is your goal? What is your desire? What do you want the outcome to be? What is it that you talk about all the time? Where do you have content? Really helping you get clear on that process, as well as how do we, like, what's the first step, right? What's the next step? What's the next step? That kind of thing.
Thank you so much for offering this to our listening audience. We're going to make sure that we get this information into the bio so that our listening audience can take advantage of the book clarity sessions. And you know what? Also, the Author in 30 Lab. I think I'm going to hop in some of those myself. Leslie, so don't be surprised if you see me pop up.
Would love to have you. Would love to have you, and have so enjoyed this interview. You're such a thoughtful and perceptive interviewer.
Well, thank you so much. That is so sweet. Thank you so much. So, final words, Leslie. You've been giving us great content, great insight, great expertise, great education our entire time together. So, take us home. What are your final words that will help us, whether we're an author or just a woman that's looking to elevate her voice or elevate her authority, and even to our men that's listening, that's looking to do the same thing? What are your final words to take us throughout 2026 and beyond?
I think if there is a story that is in your heart, then just do it, right? Just start that writing process, moving that through your body. You have no idea where it could take you, because really your story is your strategy, whether it's life or business. Your story is so much of who we are, and we can always rewrite it, edit it, and it's just a beautiful thing to start sharing that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. You hear that, audience? Your story is your strategy. Well, thank you, Leslie, for being with us on today. We greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa. It's been a joy.
Absolutely. Well, ladies, we want to say thank you for joining us. Remember to connect with Leslie via her website at authorin30.com. You may also connect with her via email at lescaps1@gmail.com. And be sure to connect with her on social media via LinkedIn at Leslie Caps, as well as on Facebook at leslie.caps.9. And please take advantage of her complimentary gifts. We have the 3 complimentary book clarity sessions that are designed for those of you that are thinking about writing a book, or you already have one and you want to actually work it into your business. So in order to schedule these clarity sessions, you may contact Leslie via her email at lescaps1@gmail.com. Be sure to include book in your subject line. And also, you want to drop in for the Author in 30 Lab that Leslie is offering every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. So to register, you may visit authorin30.com/lab register. Now, leaders, do you have an important story to tell that would inspire others to step into their dream career or business? If so, check the bio to learn how to become one of my special guests. And also, I would like to invite each of you to check out my brand new book, My Journey to Wholeness, Love the Success Factor, the new edition. Now available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Ingram Sparks. This book and its companion reference guide workbook remains a tangible demonstration of how God's love develops women to lead, create, and generate wealth in the fullness of our equality, purpose, and business. However, you will find additional insights, steps, and activities on how to practically apply love to your real-life circumstances, careers, or business models with resources already within your immediate reach. So check the bio to learn how to visit My Author's Corner to access the entire My Journey to Wholeness book series and gift collection. So we want to say thank you all for joining in for another episode of the Women's Leadership Mindset series. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, here's to the journey, and let's move forward.